It's funny, when you hear some sad news, and particularly in this case where it's somebody on the left who has died early in their life, died suddenly. That being Michael Brooks. He had the Michael Brooks show, and he was a very popular leftist, and the wider leftist community had great regard for him, as has been revealed with his sudden death. And I've only recently become aware of him. It wasn't that long ago, really, probably a couple of months ago. And it was when he was interviewing ContraPoints, a trans woman. And I thought, well, it was by accident I came across this site. And I thought, well, that to me is a very good sign when people are interviewing trans women and trying to elevate that issue so that people on the left can understand it and there can stop being so much transphobia. So I thought that was a really good thing that the Michael Brooks show was interviewing her, and then I sort of checked out some other episodes on his YouTube channel. He was very, very knowledgeable, and he seemed like a very nice person. Very nice person. Well, turns out he was a very nice person. And the interesting thing is, and I'm going to read out some things that some people have said about him. He was born in 1983, and he was only, I think, 37 or something. And it was very sudden, and I wonder if it was some sort of a brain aneurysm, because that can happen where people just drop dead suddenly. It bursts and they drop dead. Or an abdominal aortic aneurysm. I think of these things having a health background, but it was, it's always a great shock when that happens, and I've seen a lot of people during my nursing who have just died suddenly from that, or fell into a coma and that was the end of it. But who knows? But that's not important really at this. I mean, it's not important, but so, and it's funny. I heard about it this morning. I live in Tasmania, so we're on different time zones. I heard about it this morning and fairly early, and then I saw Robbie Martin's Main Politics live stream that he does 3 times a week, and I didn't see it when it was live. I saw it about an hour later, but I watched it, and he was very, very upset about it, which kind of really moved me, because I was already feeling sad about it, because there's one less leftist on the planet that and we need every single one of them at this time. And so it was very sad to see Robbie Martin so sad about it as well, and other people sad about it. And then I, as the day progressed, and I was doing other things, and then this evening it just really hit me. It hit me, that there's so few on the planet, seemingly. I'm not saying there definitely is, but there seems to be so few on the planet that are like, say, Michael Brooks or Abby Martin, people like that are so genuine, and are the real deal. And I can name a number of people, but it just seems like, have you ever seen that show, that movie, Jason and the Argonauts, where, by the way, it's very cold here, so excuse me if me and my red nose. If you've ever seen Jason and the Argonauts, where, there's, Jason is, I think it's Jason, he's fighting all these skeletons, and every time he sort of slices one of them, it's a very old movie, very old, black and white, it's like 2 get up, and 2 skeletons get up, and they're fighting with a sword. And that sort of goes on, and there's more and more of these skeletons, till eventually he has to jump over this cliff into the water. He survives, I think, but all these skeletons jump over with him, and they end up sinking, but he survives. That's what I remember of that. It's a very, very old movie. But oftentimes when there's a particular death of someone significant that has been helping move the anti-imperialist message forward, who's been fighting for social equality, social justice in a real way, but particularly anti-imperialists and anti-war activists, because that's such an unpopular thing today, and it's really being suppressed online by algorithms and by just general censorship. And there's even groups that say they're leftist groups and progressive groups ignore it, basically. So there's so few of those people, and when one goes like that so suddenly, and somebody who has such a depth of knowledge and probably could have actually become, he'd just written a book and just released it. He had a sort of a holistic sense, from what I'm gathering, about activism. He had a spiritual component, and he talked to Cornel West and they chatted about that. But he probably could have gone on to be quite significant, and more significant than he was. And so it does seem sometimes like the Jason and the Argonauts scenario. The skeletons just keep popping up, and there's more and more. Every time one is knocked over, there's 2 or 3 more. That seems to be like what the obstacles are sometimes for those on the left pushing against this huge Goliath of a empire, which is falling, by the way. It is falling, but it's very dangerous right now, and you can tell by what's happening in Portland with these what appear to be private militias coming and just taking people off the street. That's what Pinochet did. That's the sort of thing that, where people had disappeared. Death squad type material. And it's coming now, what's been happening all over the world to black and brown people, and in Latin America and the Middle East. What's been happening all over the world is now coming home to roost in the United States toward white people. It's been happening to black people all along, but now it's happening to white people. And so suddenly white people are thinking, uh-oh, as if this is something new, but it's been happening all around the world and to black and brown people in the United States and Muslims, etc. Now suddenly white people are the target too, because it's irrelevant really to the state, to the establishment, to the capitalist class, to the 1%, what color you are. It's irrelevant really. You're a threat to their majority, to their hold on power. You're a threat to it, and so this is where it's heading. There's going to be more and more Portlands with more and more of that kind of just taking people off the street, etc., particularly if Trump gets back into office. Could go the same way with Biden, because ultimately they're just one big war party, one big party basically, and they do not want to let go of power. But that's beside the point, really. This is sort of the point I'm making is when I was sitting on my bed tonight, and I was getting warm because it was very cold, and I was watching the end of Robbie Martin's Main Politics live stream he did today, and I saw this kind of shock and sadness on his face, and then it all started catching up to me. I started feeling, tears started coming to my eyes, and the next thing I knew I was weeping and just sort of wept for about 20 minutes or something. And I haven't cried like that for a while. And I realized how much it's hard to talk about this, really. Sorry, I'll get it together. Sorry, I just had to stop for a moment and sort of collect myself, otherwise I'm just going to be crying in front of the camera. I realize how isolated I am here in a political sense. And my partner and I, we're both political. My partner's got a very long history of activism, all kinds of activism, and she's very humble. So she's, very rarely talks about the things that she does with other people, but I'm aware of how much she's done, and it's pretty amazing. I've often said to her, you should write a book. But anyway, I realize, I think the reason why I ended up crying like that is because it's almost like that triggered that death of that young man who dedicated his life to that, and even President Lula left a touching tribute on about him. President Lula, ex-President Lula of Brazil. He left a touching tribute, which I'll read in a moment. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to make this about me, but I didn't really know Michael Brooks really at all in a personal sense. I hadn't communicated with him, but I valued the work that I saw, and then to see the outpourings of toward him made me think about the community, or lack thereof, where I am, and how that, so it affects me. Like, I care about these issues. I care about them, and it's it does feel sometimes like it does feel sometimes like it's pushing shit uphill with a sieve, as they say. And of course, I'm a white person living in a lovely area. I don't have these sort of oppressions, even that are going on in the United States, even towards white people, let alone black people, brown people, Muslims, Chinese, etc. And all over the world, the terrible oppressions. I don't have that, and yet, you can, all you can do is do what you do. Do is this tiny contribution, of varying kinds, and then being also kind to people. All those things are so important. But it just seems so insignificant sometimes, It just seems so insignificant. But, as Gandhi said, whatever you do will be insignificant, but it's important that you do it. And I'd agree with him there, because if we're all doing something, then it has to make an impact, and it does make an impact, really. And we can see it right now, because the capitalist class, the 1%, the power structure is really freaked out, because they can see people are waking up to the scam, this monopoly scam where a small bunch of people own everything. And they're making sure that you don't have anything, and they're going to make sure that it's going to be worse than that. They're going to step on your head, and they want to have the knee on the neck of everybody eventually, just like George Floyd. Eventually, everybody. That famous quote, first they came for this, then they came for that group, then they came for that group, and eventually, and I said nothing, and then they came for me. It's exactly right, still holds true today. But like I was saying, if I can get this out without crying again, it's hard being so isolated here, and so politically, and so, because there are a lot of people in Australia who think that they think they understand the issues, but they haven't tapped into independent journalism, and they've swallowed the anti-Russian propaganda, the anti-Chinese propaganda. We're so propagandized in Australia, with the Murdoch media owning 3/4 of the media sources, so propagandized that it's hard to have a conversation with anybody here that has really any sort of real grasp on things. Even the ones that think that they're really left still don't really know. As that saying goes, they don't know what they don't know. There's a lot of that here. And, you know, you sound like you're speaking a different language. You know, you sound like a gigantic conspiracy theorist when you talk to, and even people who think that they have a fair bit of knowledge about the U.S. empire or you know, what the different things that are happening around the world. And then you speak to them, and then they, you know, if you start speaking to them about the anti-Russian propaganda or the whatever, or the different, you know, the different things with Julian Assange, whatever issue, you know, they think you're some sort of a tinfoil hat wearer, basically. So it's like that here for me, and that's why I join in on, you know, it's nice to be able to join in on live streams with different leftists, and I think the one that makes me feel very supported is Robbie Martin's live stream 3 times a week on MAME Politics, because that's pretty much all I have as a community, really, in a political sense. And we need to have solidarity, and we need to look at this as an international movement, as be internationalists and see other people's struggles as our own, because they are. It's not all little separate things that have nothing to do with one another. And it's hard to watch people who are working so hard, like these various independent journalist sites that I regularly mention, and then see someone taken away from them that just makes their job a bit harder, but also is inspiring at the same time. But anyway, I wanted to share with you some thoughts that people left. As I say, I didn't know Michael Brooks. He seemed like a lovely person. He seemed like he had a great intelligence, and also a real care. And that's the key, isn't it? Real empathy and a real care for others. If that's motivating people to do activism, I think that's very important. And ultimately, you know, we're all just human beings on the earth, and if we don't care about one another, and don't forget the non-human animals, I'm vegan, and I'm hoping that a lot of left people will become vegan eventually and recognize that what we're doing to non-human animals on this planet is pretty much the same as what we're doing to black and brown people, and oppressing others and otherizing based on an irrelevant criterion, race, sex, gender, sexual orientation, yada yada, all the different, you know, we're oppressing a gigantic group of vulnerable beings for no reason at all. We don't need to. That's why I'm vegan. And they're not our property, they're sentient. So I'm hoping that people on the left, you know, whoever isn't vegan already really thinks about that and checks out my vegan resource, howtogovegan.org. So I'm going to read out just what Abby Martin said about Michael Brooks. She said, "Gutted to learn I lost my friend Michael Brooks today. He was not only an amazing journalist and passionate fighter for justice, he was funny, genuine, and selfless. Please tell people how much they are loved and supported, because you might not get another chance. My heart hurts so much." I know what that's like, because when I lost my sister in 1978, she was 19, I was 17, and she overdosed. We think it was intentional. She had a long history of depression, and this is in the 70s too. It's not a good time to have depression, and no time's a good time to have depression, but in the 70s there wasn't a lot known about addiction in relation to depression, and so she overdosed eventually. I knew it was going to happen even when I was 13 years old. I could see the progression, and I knew eventually she was going to kill herself, and eventually she did. And that was an incredible shock to my family, and pretty much kind of destroyed us for a while. And I know ever since that time when I was 17, I've always told people fairly regularly how much I love them, people that are close to me. I do that every day with my partner. I do it with my mother, who's still alive. She's very, very old, but I do that with, and I try to show people care that I care about them. I care about their feelings, because there isn't enough of that, I feel now. There's not enough of showing care. We're all so caught up. There's just too much distraction, so many people, and human beings start to become kind of disposable. There's so many human beings on the planet. People aren't being seen for the individuals they are and the incredible beings that they are. And don't get me started about non-human animals not being seen for the incredible sentient beings they are. So I always, I've always since then tried to, and it's so true, because you can be if you've watched my episode, I did a little chat about death about 6 weeks ago, and I might put that at the end, and you can watch that. People can be there one day and then gone literally the next, and you're just having normal conversations with them, and then they're gone. And there'll never be another person in that particular form with those particular attributes again. They're completely unique in the universe, unless, of course, there's many, many different parallel universes, as has been theorized. But basically, there's, if we're just looking at this universe, there's probably only one of those people with those life experiences, and they're gone. And I could say some other things I feel about that in a spiritual sense, but I'll leave that. I think those who follow my channel probably know they know a little bit about me. So I don't follow any organized religion, but I have my thoughts about all of that. But anyway, journalist Abby Martin from the Empire Files, she went on to say, the left has many divides. Michael Brooks was one of the few who reached out to unite, a true internationalist and brilliant soul that practiced everything he spoke. May his incredible legacy inspire all of us to continue his work with the same humility. Viva la lucha camarada. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, but I think it means live the life comrade, something like that. Michael Brooks's Twitter site, and it said, it is with a heavy heart that we announce the unexpected passing of Michael Brooks, a son, brother, friend, and true comrade to so many due to a sudden medical condition. Michael believed in bringing people together in the struggle for love and justice, fighting for all poor and working people, a struggle that he understood to be global. He knew the only way we could do this was by bringing people together, and made his life's work bringing people from different backgrounds and countries together. I'm having a bit of trouble tonight, aren't I? We hope you join us in honouring him by continuing that work. Michael brought his insight and commitment to building what he called a global humane project for a new order of things through many projects, including the Michael Brooks Show, the Majority Report, and Jacobin. This year, these projects brought Michael to Brazil, where he was able to interview Lula da Silva, a personal hero of his whose causes and fight for freedom were dear to Michael's heart. In April, Michael was able to speak to another one of his heroes, Dr. Cornel West, on politics, love, spirituality, and music, capturing his deeply human approach to building a just world. It is impossible to capture the impact he had, and he will be missed sorely. His family and friends want to ensure his work continues and are preparing plans for the best way to ensure his fight continues. His family will release a statement in the near future about plans to keep his work alive by creating a foundation in his honor. While the form it will take is uncertain, Michael's family desires to keep his work alive and asks all who wish to contribute continue doing so in the usual channels. Now we will honor Michael by treating all humans with respect and dignity. As tragic as it is, his loss, if it brings attention to that, particularly that last sentence, that's a wonderful thing. And Michael Brooks was only doing a podcast episode about, 12 hours ago, really, or he was only just literally yesterday Up a couple of other tweets about him, people leaving their condolences and saying what they thought about Michael Brooks. We all need to support one another, because this is not a short sprint, it's a marathon what we're facing. If we want, I realize that we're going to probably go extinct in a few decades, maybe in 2060 or something. It feels, I think that's almost certainly going to happen, but we can certainly make our last decades on Earth sort of better than they have been. And certainly, I mean, are we going to have war right to the end, or are we going to blow ourselves up in a big mushroom cloud? Are we going to do this until the end, or are we going to just try and struggle and struggle to have some decency and real sort of equity and equality in this world? We're going to have to keep trying and struggling and be vegan. We're going to have to do all those things and never ever give up, even if it is the case that we go extinct. At least we go out with some, some dignity and respect, and some, for want of a better word, class. We go out with some humanity, instead of just warring and killing and violence and animal exploitation and vilifying anybody who's different. I mean, we surely we're not going to go out like that. I mean, really and truly. So anyway, I'll read you this and then I'll wrap it up. Sorry, I don't seem to be able to do any short videos sometimes when I start talking about things. But anyway, so Abby Martin, this is a poem by Langston Hughes, and she put this in dedicated to Michael Brooks. They buried Lumumba in an unmarked grave, but he needs no marker, for air is his grave, sun is his grave, moon is, stars are, space is his grave, my heart's his grave, and it's marked there. Tomorrow we'll mark it everywhere. And that's by Langston Hughes, 1961. So rest in power, Michael Brooks. Be in peace always.